How are you?
I'm great. When I think about happiness and just being me in my life, it's really about living a conscious life and being responsible for our minds and our hearts. And I'm filled with love, and I'm surrounded by love.
Well, I mean, I get that impression even from Instagram today, right? You posted that the heart is a wild creature. That's why our ribs are cages. What is going on in your heart?
No, I rarely post stuff like that, but it triggered something. I thought it was evocative. And our hearts are wild creatures. Sometimes I feel like, as a mental health advocate, we should share more.
So when you talk about feeling and you talk about you've heard this room, this place is familiar to you.
Well, this place is familiar only because I celebrated my 40th birthday and because it's owned by incredible local talents and friends. Friends. And I'm very proud that they're doing so great.
What was the future for 40-year-old you?
I don't make that many plans. I think I've trained my brain to deal with uncertainty more. And the brain doesn't like uncertainty. And stress is a dysfunctional relationship with the present moment. So we can understand how many people are really in toxic stress alert mode everywhere in this country and on this planet.
That element of it is really relatable. I think what's hard sometimes to connect with is understanding the level of stress that you had to go through. As a co-political spouse, which is how you phrase it.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you can help me understand them a bit.
I don't think we should be comparing each other's sufferings, because we're all one trauma away from each other. And when we're stuck in that alert mode for too long, our bodies become sick. And when we see the division, the polarization in this world, and we see how people are feeling insecure and stressed, insecurity is also a very difficult way to be in order to trust others.
These are perhaps gracious descriptions of the vitriol that's been leveled recently. Slurs and rocks hurled at the Prime Minister and displays of hate their children have witnessed firsthand.
I would imagine that you and your children in particular saw things and heard things that were pretty uncomfortable. They saw the F. Trudeau signs, and I'm wondering how you got through that. You're in a doctor's office, and you and your daughter hear someone say, "I've got the Trudeau cold." And what did you do in that moment?
I felt my emotions rise, and I regulated them, is what I did. And we sighed and winked, because you can't take that personally. You can't. That's not... You wouldn't be of service to life if you took that personally. But politics is played differently these days. And I think we have to be more mindful with all the intimidation and bullying that's going on. Especially with female ministers and all that they've been going through, the things that I've seen and heard, if people knew this, maybe they'd have a different scope and a different way of looking at public service.
For example?
I take Minister Ian or any other female ministers and Krista Freeland. And there's many who have gone through so much public scrutiny, and a big part of it is because there are women, and that is unacceptable. And we have to cry this out and say that it's absolutely unacceptable.
That happened to you?
Yes, it happened, yeah. I've had very hateful comments come my way, yes.
Were you surprised by the threats you faced?
Surprised. I think I'm growing into my late 40s, approaching 50 next year, with a little bit more perspective on life, on why people behave the way they do, that it's not that personal.
Think of the things your kids have been exposed to. They've seen those horrible images of your husband sort of in the gallows. How worried are you that is imprinting on them?
They're surrounded with love and stability and just presence. And those are choices that I've made because that's the kind of mother that I want to be. Does it mean that they are completely invincible and that they don't feel the ups and downs of life? No, and that's not what I wish either. Sometimes we overprotect our kids. We don't want them to hurt. Pain is part of being human, but we don't teach our kids how to sit with pain, or adults for that matter.
Hey everyone, happy Halloween, trick or treat.
To be raising a young family, to be trying to keep their childhoods private while also needing to live so publicly, has to be an unusual experience. Grégoire Trudeau had access to a woman who understood like few others.
Your mother-in-law, Margaret Trudeau, talked of her co-political years as being in a gilded cage. That makes sense to you?
She was 18, 19, 20-year-old with undiagnosed bipolar disease. We cannot compare the situations. All I can say is that she's been an immense source of support on my path.
I'm wondering, though, if there's any advice that she offered that rattles for you and says, aha, that
Absolutely.
makes sense.
And they're not words. It's her constant love and support.
I think it's interesting that we don't, in this country, have the right language for the spouse of a prime minister. Like, it's not a first partner. There isn't like staff
Right.
attached to this position. Do you think, having seen that role, that it's worthy of renovation, maybe?
Whoever will end up there one day has a different life than I do. Maybe is not comfortable maybe with cameras. I was trained to do this, right? So for me, it's all right, but maybe not for somebody else. So what if they don't want a particular role there? So it's a good question, but it's a hard one because it depends on every individual, and it would be changing a lot of things in the system. So it's a difficult one to answer.
You said something earlier about, people taking on a future role. We do know that in the current political landscape, Jagmeet Singh, Pierre Poilievre, they both have young families, right? So there is, in the next election, should it be someone other than Justin Trudeau who becomes prime minister, there's a chance it will be people with young families. What do you wish someone had told you?
That's the thing, is that you go in without knowing what awaits you, but that's life. And even if I wanted to give 100,000 lessons to the people coming in, they will live it differently than we do and have and will. So I hope they have a good support system. I hope they offer each other love and support in their own families. But the rest really is not up to me. It's up to them,
You, I think it's a consequence of living in the public eye that people want to connect with you and they want to understand and they imagine your life a little bit. I think it's inevitable. It's probably not comfortable, but it's inevitable. And so when you and Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister Trudeau, separated, you can imagine the country was buzzing, right? Of
Was
course.
there gossip?
With a little bit of gossip, yes, a little bit of gossip. But there were also questions, as in, I wonder if there was a hard conversation, please don't run again, please don't put the family and us through this again. And then there was a decision to run.
From what I've been learning on my path and meeting them, Canadians are open-hearted, they're open-minded, they wish the best for others. And when there is a minority of people who want to be divisive or are fearful or are in a place of insecurity, maybe all the gossip and the drama of relationships maybe interest them more. But that doesn't mean that, that everything has to be shared when anyway, we're always having truthful conversations within our own family unit and keeping things real. That's where it all really counts. I don't think people are that curious. I think people are caring, and I cannot tell you the amount of love and support that I've been getting.
I hope that's not a surprise to you.
A little bit.
Why?
I'm not sure why. I'm thinking. Because I love people, and I find solace in relationships. And I want to believe in the goodness of human beings. And I will never let my arms down and let the negative forces take over. So yeah, it makes me emotional because I think there's lots of not only positivity, but realism and constructivism at the same time.
So what would Sophie Grégoire Trudeau now tell Sophie Grégoire Trudeau back in 2015?
Hold on to your hats. It's going to be a wild ride. That's what I would say.
Good ride?
Be ready. Of course, it's life. I love life. bottom line.